It is the Blitz here on 94.1 at San Antonio Sports Star. He is Joe Reinagle. I'm at Jay Synergenx live on Radio Row, or AA Best Bail Bonds Radio Row. Coverage continues with Lindsay Rhodes joining us now. I want to introduce you as one of the smartest people to cover the game.
Wow.
Is that fair?
Oh, man.
Wow.
Is that fair?
Now I feel a lot of pressure.
Well, there is pressure.
That's actually a good strategy, right? Like everyone who sits down, deeply flatter them and make them bring their A game.
Yes.
A friend of ours, RJ Ochoa from bloggingtheboys.com.
Huge fan, yes.
He's like, oh, you have Lindsay Rhodes. I'm so jealous. I'm surprised he's not here fangirling.
That's very kind. I would fangirl right back.
We're talking about RJ. How was Radio Row for you and everything that you do now?
It's so fun. I actually love, like, it's the number of words per minute that I have said today. It is wild. I'm like, slow down, Lindsay. I get going, and it's like, you're gonna get a good dose of that, like me nerding out. But it's so fun to talk to all of the different people from all over the country, honestly, in such a compact time frame, because you get a chance to really get a feel for like where people's heads are. We kind of operate in our own little spaces, and so you don't really know how people in other areas are seeing some of the like broader stories of the game, and I just think it's fascinating.
Well, Lindsay, you got to take it easy on us because we're the Dallas Cowboys station. And so it's been a long drought for us, and so take it easy. What are your thoughts on what's going on there?
I think you guys kind of know. This is like a tread lightly situation.
Not really.
I feel like well, maybe not for you. I feel like I've just been perplexed by so many. It's the decision-making process. It's it feels like we're prioritizing, but I don't know that this is actually true, but it feels like we're prioritizing popularity over being good. Like when the decision about the contracts in the off season was taken right up until the deadline, and there, those of us on the outside are pulling out our head. We're like, we always knew it was coming here, and people only get more expensive in the NFL. They never get cheaper, especially in the course of an off season, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, you wait until the deadline, and now he has you over a barrel. Like, what are you going to do? Like, you're going to get a discount now? Of course not. Everyone knew that. But then there's the part of, people who are like, well, but he got to be on national television in the conversation every single day, while people like me freaked out about the fact that this wasn't happening. And I don't think that that's what he's going for, but it's so hard to understand what he is going for. So I think that is sort of my 50,000 foot view. Like, every question you could ask me about the team, I think falls into that bucket.
It's interesting because we're in it every day, right? And
I'm sorry.
and like, all right, somebody from 50,000 feet.
Right.
I know you follow every team, so you obviously not one gets all that extra attention, and you're seeing the same thing. Like.
Yeah.
Everything seems so avoidable.
That's a good word for it. You're right.
And now, all right, so this offseason, will the Cowboys do the right thing with Micah Parsons, or will they do the same thing? And when I say right, if you're going to sign the guy, get it done sooner, because then you can manipulate the cap for other free agents.
Oh, what? There are reasons to do it sooner? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. I mean, I know that. You know that. Jerry doesn't seem to know that.
I know, you guys.
I
don't know why I'm being careful.
Right?
Well,
it just feels like at this point, it almost feels like low hanging fruit.
It is.
We're all saying the same thing, and it makes me feel a little bit like, I don't know. Like, but at the same time, when you're in a position of power, there also seems to be, like, much like some of the phrases that he keeps bringing up. I think you know where I'm going with this, and it makes you wonder, like, who there is able to pull him aside and lovingly say, that's not it. Who is there to check you? And I think everybody who is powerful needs someone who loves them, that will be straight up with them and check them when things are not going well. And it doesn't, I wonder if that's the case in this situation, because there are too many missteps that are hugely unpopular that I would think that he would care about.
Well, you would think so. And look, we disagree a lot on how the Cowboys are done and what they've done and how they've done it. But if I'm Micah Parsons, I'm in no hurry to get signed, because I want to see what happens with some of these other guys.
Of course.
And so it may not all be Jerry when push comes to shove.
I mean, maybe not, but shouldn't it be him pushing and shoving to
Sure.
get the deal done?
Yeah.
Right? Like, so even if they're dragging their heels, at least then you could try very hard to get it done, and maybe even message behind the scenes, send out, so that people like you guys who cover the team, you're hearing through your people that the Cowboys are desperately trying to sign him to a deal. They want to get this done. That's something Cowboys fans need to hear. Right? That you're being proactive. And that's also strategic from a negotiating tactic. Now ball's in your court, Micah. Are you dragging your heels?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, are fans going to get mad at you? Are you a camp holdout? Now it puts it back on them. So even if that were the case, I would think that they would want to protect the star and, flip the script. Like, just start getting the word out. It makes me think that that's not the case.
Lindsay Rhodes joining us here on the Blitz. I think what we see sometimes with the Cowboys, because Jerry even mentioned it the other day in introducing Brian Schottenheimer, Dak in the back of the room. It takes two, right? Well, if you don't send a low ball offer, it probably gets done sooner rather than later. And that's the other concern. I'm sure he sent an offer. I'm sure he sent one to CD that was insulting to CD Lamb at that point, and probably ended up costing him more money when it was all said and done.
And I wonder too, how does this impact how a team feels about where they are? And I know that is an intangible thing, and they're still going to play their hardest, and they've got a lot on the line. And it's not like you're going to it's not like what we saw from Dak this year on the field was because he was like, I don't care about this team as much anymore. Like, clearly that's not the case. But in terms of locker room chemistry, in terms of, teams gelling into teams, you want that cohesivity. Is that a word?
Sure.
That all came
Yeah,
out
we'll
in
take that,
syllables,
yeah.
man.
Yes.
But like
it sounds like a Jerryism.
You said, thanks. But you see sort of what we're seeing in Detroit right now.
Uh-huh.
Clearly there are tangibles. There are things that you can point to, numbers and ways that we can evaluate. There are some clear and obvious intangibles there that you can see the ways that it's impacting the team. And you would imagine this is also having an effect. Like when Dan Campbell gives his post-game locker room speeches, there's something about the way that they look at him, the way that they respond to him, how he talks to them. I think he coaches them hard, but he coaches them in a way. And I think that this is sort of when you see him going for it on fourth down quite frequently, I think it also subtly, and you could argue whether or not he does it too much, but I think it sends a message to his guys. It's like, you're going to do it. I believe in you. And then gives them an opportunity to make a play. And I think that players love that. I think that they love, give me the ball, right? And so let me make the play that's a game changer here. And so I think that there is fallout from that's positive for teams. And I feel like all of the stuff that goes on in Dallas has to have an effect in the opposite way.
Well, I'm not as smart as you, but it's culture, right?
Where did this come from?
It's culture. I mean, I think it is, and I think that's a big part of the problem too. And I think Jerry has a lot to do with that. But two teams that do have a pretty good culture will be playing on Sunday right here in New Orleans, in Philadelphia, and Kansas City, and well-run organizations. I don't think you can doubt it, even though we don't like the Eagles very much for obvious reasons. But are you on the side of wanting to see history made, or do you want to see Kansas City get knocked off?
I don't care in that way. I don't know how you guys feel. You have an investment because you don't like Philadelphia. They're same division, right? Sometimes when I'm watching games and I don't have a team, and I know that weirds people out, it's a long story. But so what happens to me is I find that, I'll talk about things throughout the week. Sometimes I'm biased because I'm rooting for a take that I had. Like I want to be right. I'm selfish like that.
Sure.
But also sometimes I'll be watching a game and I'll realize I'm rooting for a team about third quarter, halfway through the game, something like that. And I'll go, I didn't even realize I wanted them to win, but here I am cheering for them. And so I'm at that I have no idea who I'm cheering for stage of the week. But I think it's a fascinating game to try and evaluate. because speaking of tangibles and intangibles and things that you can measure versus can't, this is a perfect game that is an example of that, right?
Sure.
On the Philadelphia side, I mean, in all the advanced metrics, it's like number one EPA offense, like just consistently they are good across the board. And there's lots of evidence about the reasons why. You look at the roster, pull that up. I mean, holy heck, look at all the all pros and pro bowlers. And I mean, both of their tackles might be the best tackles in the entire game, right? So I think the roster is the best roster in the NFL. Lions are in this conversation. I go Eagles. And then you look at the Chiefs and pull up their advanced metrics, and they're not bad at anything, but they're also not elite at anything. And so you're like, we're in the 9 to 15 range in a lot of different categories. So they're good, but like, how did they get here? And so then that leads me to the high value people that are on a team that can have the like positional value or like coach, the ability to turn it just with their own presence. And it feels like they have the best high-end players in the game. And so, I mean, clearly the best quarterback. I mean, and that's nothing about Jalen Hurts. It's like, are we going to be in the Tom Brady GOAT conversation in a few years? Yes, we are. We're going to have that. Let's just, get that off our chest right now. And then you've got Andy Reid, who is insane. Spags, who is insane. Do they have the best defensive player in this game in Chris Jones? I mean, the Eagles' defense is way better, but do the Chiefs have the best defensive player? Like a game wrecker up front. Trent McDuffie's outstanding. And I just think that there's a lot of high leverage situations that the Chiefs have mastered. Like great on third down. They find themselves in third and short. They stay ahead of the sticks. The game management type of thing. They don't make mistakes in those ways. I feel like my head is telling me Eagles and my gut is telling me Chiefs. And I'm going to stick with the Chiefs because I said all year long, when you talk about these teams that are good, they're great in this way and they're great in this way. And then the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl because,
exactly.
One score games,
they're the
tight
Chiefs.
games. They've been there as we visit with Lindsay Rhodes here on the Blitz. I'm trying to figure out what kind of game we're going to get.
Yeah.
High scoring game, still one possession, or do you think it's going to be a blowout one way or slugfest, low scoring 17-14 kind of deal?
God, I hope it's not 17-14. Nobody wants that, right? That would be just disappointing across the board. Like, what a thud. So maybe it is my optimism and my also fantasy background that is pushing me in this direction. I want lots of scoring. And I also think that to a degree, it is like the Chiefs defense, especially as the season went on, did have some holes in it. Like you can run on them. Their run defense from week 10 to now is much lower down the rankings chart than they would like to be. Also run offense, frankly. But so I don't think having a run defense or a defense that you can run on against Saquon Barkley is necessarily a recipe that you would want, which for betting purposes is why I'm pointing people to Nick Bolton's line of 8.5 tackles. I think that might be an interesting one to go over. It's a high number. But, I mean, I kind of feel like he might play a big role in this game in terms of trying to stop Saquon. This is not at all the question you asked. Now I'm just rambling.
That's okay.
You're rambling in areas where people are listening in their car, turning it up, going, all right, 8.5.
They're like pulling up, their apps.
Yes, yes. And for the record, SI Now's Fantasy Dirt Podcast, what you do with Summer Sports with. You're doing a show with Thomas, right? Thomas Dimitrov?
Thomas Dimitrov, who is like, it's so fun for me to nerd out and to ask a general manager. Like I have access, whenever I want, kind of like you have to talk to me.
Yes.
Which is amazing.
So what other of those individual numbers are you looking at? It's early in the week, but right now the value on that might be pretty good.
For sure. Well, how about the line? The line changed, didn't it? Oh no, wait. What was the line that changed here? Oh, Devontae Smith changed. It came down a yard. So, but I actually think Devontae Smith is interesting. You guys have heard his past against Spags defenses. These lines: 7 catches for 122 yards, 7 catches for 100 yards, 6 catches for 99 yards. He's faced Spags 3 times in his history with the Eagles versus the Chiefs, and those have been his 3 lines. That's
crazy.
So I'm just saying, Devontae Smith's is a 49.5. That one, I might smash because I kind of feel like he's, especially with McDuffie in this game. Like, does that feel like an AJ situation? Not all the time because they're not going to travel and like follow one guy specifically. I don't think, but so maybe that takes AJ out of a few here and there, and Devontae is then the guy. How about you got to go all the way up to 125 yards to get plus money on Saquon?
That's crazy.
What?
I mean, that's just nuts, right? I mean, even though that's certainly doable for him, but
what?
that's crazy.
It's wild.
Yeah.
These lines that have been set for Saquon for the last couple of weeks. I mean, and he's, what he's doing on the ground is just insane.
He's been special. I mean, he's really been special. The guy's great. I've got to ask you, though, there should be a line on why people hate the Kansas City Chiefs so much. I mean, can you put your finger on that? I get it. People are fatigued and they're this or that. They think the officials are in the pocket. I mean, we hear it all the time, right? Because I don't get it, though. I mean, I think we are seeing a quarterback. You mentioned being in the GOAT conversation, but I think we're seeing a quarterback who, in my mind, is the best player I've ever seen play.
It's wild, right? How good he is.
Yeah.
And even in a year like now, when all of his metrics, like none of them point. So even we have some advanced metrics that use tracking data. It's insane. I'll tell you another time, but I don't want to ramble about that. But it's really, really cool what Sumer has put together. The ability to do like stop him frame by frame and tell you completion probability. And as it changes throughout the play, it's so interesting what it can show you in terms of what's actually happening on the field. But he ranked 27th in our passing all-in-one metric, 27th. But that said, we all know, and this is why I always say this when we're using any kind of numbers are just there to be like, why? And to start a conversation off of that. The numbers are not the story all by themselves. They almost always should just spark a story where you do some digging, maybe pull up some tape. You look for context around this because we know that he is nowhere near the 27th best quarterback in the NFL. And we also know that even this year, even though the numbers kind of point to this, and even if he did have a relatively down year, that's just not the right story. So I forgot what the question was about Fangio. Hey, yes, not Fangio. I don't know. I saw Fangio's name on my notes, and that's what came out of my mouth. Kansas City Chiefs hate.
Yes.
I think that the fatigue is predictable. I think it's always going to happen when there is any kind of dynasty in place. We saw it with the Patriots and how you get so excited. I mean, you see that even just with celebrities who are everywhere. And then you reach a point where you go,
Taylor
I
Swift,
am done seeing you everywhere. Now
Taylor
I
Swift,
hate you.
Yeah,
yes.
Right.
Yes. And I mean, I wish more people had the self-awareness to understand they don't actually hate that person. It's actually not really about that person. They just want to see something different for a change.
Sure.
And that's clearly the case with the Chiefs. And I know that the refs conversation is what it is. I think that suggesting that there is some sort of conspiracy to get them in the game is bizarre. Like can you imagine the logistics of pulling that off and how many people would need to know that they all need to be in the bag for the Chiefs but that has never come out. Yeah. No one has ever said, hey, I got a note that said like, what? Of course they would in today's day and age. So I think it's just that people get tired of seeing the same thing over and over and want something fresh. And so it's predictable that they've now turned into the bad guys.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I enjoy watching them play. There is greatness that is on that field. And I mean, at the very least, let's all appreciate what Reed and Spags are able to put together.
Absolutely.
Because what they did just against the Bills, pulling out some looks and plays that they had not put on tape all year long in the AFC Championship game, surprising them. I mean, come on, it's masterful.
It's what they do.
Masterful. I like that.
And again, they'll three-peat because I don't know if I can handle seeing Philly get another one.
It's like
I mean,
asterisk. Because just because
because
of course
all the analytics it's because your gut. Yep. It's because now at Sumer Sports in your display here on Radio Row, and I keep seeing people go up there and do stuff on this video board. For people that's never been to your website, they're hearing about it for the first time. What is it?
So we are a data and scouting company. And so we have like over 600 years of scouting experience in terms of the collective staff, which was put together by Thomas Dimitroff. And then there's also a whole data arm of it. And so they work in concert to provide information for teams that have contracts with Sumer Sports to help them better come up with some evaluation and strategy for their roster decisions, right? We are moving into the consumer space in the future. And so there will be a little bit of fantasy products coming this summer.
Nice.
And there is even right now some of this advanced data that you hear people talking about, like expected points added has kind of entered the lexicon quite a bit, like average depth of target, ADOT, their yards per, let me point you in this direction. Look for this stat when it comes time for the draft where wide receivers are concerned. Yards per route run, YPRR. This is all the data scientists who are way smarter than me have gone through the numbers and the people and said that this is actually one of the stickiest, most predictive stats when it comes to predicting whether somebody will be able to make the leap to the next level and have success. When you look at Puka Nacua and you go, okay, how did we miss on this? What did we get wrong? All of the data was there. Yards per route run, first downs per route run, some of these performance metrics that are not just yards or touchdowns or catches. Some of these things told us the story that Puka Nacua is amazing. So this is a long-winded way of saying that you can find some of those stats on sumersports.com and it's not behind a paywall. And these are all stats that a lot of times you have to go to a bunch of different websites to find, and you also have to pay for the ability to do that. We're also working on a product called Sumer Brain, which is like a search engine specifically trained we're in the process of training it through trial and error. It's going through beta testing right now, and you can sign up to be a part of that beta test on sumersports.com. It's like high-level football questions, so that you could go on it right now and say, who are the Cowboys' unrestricted free agents? And it'll pop up a list. You can say, how many draft picks do the Cowboys have? And it'll pop up a list. So we're trying to get to a point where every football question, because football's complicated, our language is a very specific one, so that it can answer these questions. What is the trade comp for Myles Garrett? And it'll hopefully tell you Khalil Mack is the closest trade that we can find, and that's 2 firsts and so hopefully it's a one-stop shop moving forward for
Great
fans.
for us sports geeks. And
That's
draft geeks.
fantastic.
And if our producer is paying attention,
I
for
would
him too.
I'd like to put in what Micah Parsons would be worth on the open market.
That's a good one. We can pull that up separately. I don't think that so I can even get back to you on a trade comp for.
I'm just saying,
This guy wants some trading.
that might be the way to get out of the hole Jerry has dug.
I mean, honestly, Michael Parsons, you're just going, what is the most expensive player making? There you go. Beat
Boom.
that, right? Like,
Yeah.
you have to go top of market. That's always the problem. That was the problem with Dak. And now, not to circle back to the beginning.
Don't get me started on Dak.
I know. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
All right, but
Here we go.
As we visit with Lindsay Rhodes, I want to leave with your thoughts on what we heard from Stephen Jones at the press conference the other day.
This drought that people say we're in terms of a championship game or a Super Bowl.
With air quotes.
Air quotes.
That was the whole clip?
Yeah.
With air quotes?
Well, it was, yeah.
That people say we're in.
Yes.
That people say we're in. That's
Guys.
all I needed. That's all I needed. Your reaction on video. Your reaction was everything. With air quotes. With air quotes.
You guys.
With air quotes.
It's not great when people are confused by press conferences, right? I mean, the people in attendance.
Yes.
When they're like, what just happened?
He really said that. He really. We've had
Well,
a lot
you
of
guys
This
have
moments.
said
drought
it.
that people say we're in
said
terms of a championship game or a Super Bowl.
Think about Micah Parsons. I'm going to come see you.
Okay.
Can we do that?
Yeah.
Seriously?
So, like, how much it might cost?
Yeah.
It literally might be as simple as like more money than the last guy. But yeah, I'll go look that up right now.
All
You're
right,
awesome.
good
I'll get
stuff.
you a number.
Lindsay
You're
Rhodes,
awesome.
Sumersports.com. She does a show there, SI Now, on Twitter at Lindsay_Rhodes. This has been fun.
Thank you so much
We'll
for
do it
having me.
again.
It's fun for me
Great.
as well.
Appreciate it. Lindsay Rhodes here on the Blitz on 94.1 San Antonio Sports Star. More coming up from New Orleans on Radio Row here on 94.1 San Antonio Sports Star.